It's hard to believe just like that 2019 is coming to an end. In today's video we look at how the 2019 real estate market performed in Cairns and we have a look into the future to 2020. Thanks for tuning in guys. Today we're talking about the Cairns real estate market and how it performed in 2019 and taking a look into the future in 2020 and what it might bring for the market. Now, the best way I heard the Cairns real estate market described for 2019 was indifferent. We saw some real pockets of buoyancy and some really great results, and we saw some properties just fail to meet our expectations when it comes to sale prices. So it was a really mixed bag. We did see little bursts of performance and then followed by little downturns, and it was a really pulsy market. But overall, we did see some great results. Personally, our highest sale for the year was a block of 10 units in Parramatta Park. That property sold for 1.2 million. And our lowest sale for the year was a one-bedroom apartment that sold in Westcourt for 84,000. So a real range of prices that we did see. Overall, personally, I sold 51 properties for the year. And we saw some really interesting stats when we dive in and look at what those sales were broken up into. First of all, I want to talk about out-of-town buyers versus local buyers. If we look back to 2018, about 30% of our sales were actually sold to people from out of town. A large portion of those out of town buyers were investors buying into the local market. For 2019, we did see that drop off considerably. So 2018, 30% of buyers were from out of town. This year, only 10% of our buyers were actually from out of town. So out of the 51 sales, only 5 of those properties were bought by people that lived outside of Cairns. So that was really interesting. I think a large part of that just come from property sort of falling out of flavour as an investment, partly due to the election and the talk of removing negative gearing that didn't end up happening, and the Royal Commission into the banking sector and that talk of really tightening finance, and what we did see at the start of the year really took investing into property sort of out of the limelight a little bit. But I do feel that we're starting to see a surge back into that coming towards the end of 2019, and with the election and the Royal Commission well behind us now. The other interesting thing to look at was our ratio of investors to owner occupiers. Throughout the year, it was sort of anecdotal that we felt like there wasn't many investors in the market. There just wasn't many inquiries coming through. We weren't seeing many interstate out-of-town buyers inquiring on property. But looking back over the stats, it was actually really surprising. Almost half of my properties were bought by investors, and pretty much all of those investors were living here in Cairns. So that was locals seeing the opportunities that are in the market and buying. So about half of our buyers, half of the properties that we sold this year were bought by local investors pretty much. And that really shows that the locals were seeing the opportunities and were taking advantage of that. There are some great buys in Cairns at the moment, and plenty of properties returning 6% plus net. So that's after you count the rates, your body corporates, your insurance are returning that 6% net with money so cheap and many banks lending around that 3.5%. It's certainly created some really great opportunities that our locals really took part of this year. One of the biggest market moves this year was in the rental sector. We saw some tremendous growth in the rental market, and a lot of properties saw 10% growth or more. For apartments, a lot of the 2-bed, 1-bath apartments were renting around that 260, 270. Now they're up over that 300 per week. Similar with properties, with houses that were renting for 330, 340 have now jumped up to the 390 to 400 mark, and onwards up through those price points. So some really impressive growth in the rental prices. And it's been interesting looking at those local investors. They've basically seen that rental prices have shot up through the roof, and yet sales prices have stayed very stagnant. Combine this with dropping interest rates, and it really has created a fantastic opportunity for people to invest in the local Cairns market. Moving into 2020, I really see the rental market continuing that strength, and I see if we do get a surge of out-of-town buyers, similar to 2015, 2016, if those out-of-town buyers come back into the market and start investing, I think we will see prices starting to rise considerably. especially your lower end and your investment class stock. I think that will really surge in price if we see those out-of-town investors come back into the market, chasing the strong cash flow that is on offer in Cairns at the moment. So there you have it, a little bit of an insight into the 2019 market and a little bit of a prediction into 2020 that if we do see those out-of-town buyers coming back into the market, that we could see some really strong capital growth here in Cairns. If you have enjoyed this video, make sure you check out the link below to the side of the duplex that me and my wife bought this year. It's a really good example of why we found that property so attractive and what we look for when we are investing in property in Cairns. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Have a fantastic Christmas and I wish you all the best into 2020.